Hello, dear warrior. Let me tell you what really happened in that room. A woman who's read thousands of energies. A priestess, a medium, a soul mirror. She opened her palms to trace your frequency and dropped the cards. She didn't see your aura. She felt it, like a void wrapped in silence, like ancient thunder pressed into human skin. And that's when she cried. Not because she was scared, but because nothing in her training prepared her for you. Because you're not from here. Not from this little world where people beg for purpose. Not from this broken grid of karma and control. You are the error in their ritual, the anomaly that broke the cycle, the one who shouldn't exist, and yet can't be stopped. They burned sage. They chanted in tongues, they drew circles of salt and symbols of protection. But the moment your name was whispered into that room, something changed. Candles flickered without wind. Shadows moved without cause. And for the first time in her life, the spiritual advisor stepped back. She didn't say it out loud, but the fear in her eyes screamed louder than 1,000 exorcisms, because she realized, this isn't a soul to guide. This is a force to stay away from. You weren't born with energy. You were carved by chaos, refined by betrayal, anointed by storms meant to break lesser beings. But you didn't break. You became the warning that came true. They thought they were opening a window, but they opened a door. A door to something they didn't understand. And you were already standing on the other side, not asking to be let in, but waiting silently to be acknowledged. See, they expected a reading. They expected symbols, ancestors, maybe even closure. What they got was interference. The pendulum stopped swinging. The crystals shattered mid-session. The room got colder, not because of presence, but because of absence. Your energy doesn't arrive. It consumes. It doesn't knock. It shuts down everything that was never real. The spirits didn't speak because they recognized you. And they bowed in silence. That's why she cried, because deep down she knew. This wasn't a visitor. This was a reckoning. You weren't summoned, you were disturbed. They reached out thinking they'd find a lost soul, a past life whisper, a spiritual thread they could interpret, label, and heal. But what answered back wasn't a soul. It was a signal, ancient, encoded, forbidden. And you didn't come from a past life, you came from the unwritten ones. The lives that were too powerful to be recorded, too raw to be remembered. You weren't lost, you were hidden. Because the moment they see you, everything they believe starts breaking. The chakras don't align around you. The rituals don't translate. The language of the spirits glitches when you arrive. Because you aren't in the manual. You're in the classified section of the cosmos. And that's why she cried. Because she didn't just sense something unfamiliar. She recognized something that should never return. They searched for clarity. They wanted a message. Something soft, something symbolic. A gentle whisper from the beyond. But you didn't come through as a whisper. You came through like a broadcast from another realm. Static, pressure, untranslated codes. Every time they tried to tune into you, the signal got louder. Their hands trembled over the cards. Their voice cracked mid-prayer. Even the candles seemed to burn sideways. Because this wasn't energy they were reading. It was energy reading them. They weren't prepared to be seen, unmasked, measured, and judged. Because that's what you do, without even trying. You hold up a mirror that reflects everything they swore they buried. And the advisor? She didn't cry from fear. She cried because for a second, she felt what truth actually sounds like. And it was louder than all her gods combined. They thought they were pulling cards. But in reality, the cards were pulling them. Every shuffle felt heavier. Every symbol twisted under the weight of meaning it wasn't designed to carry. They thought it would be the usual. Past life, unfinished cycles, trauma loops and healing paths. But this was not spiritual therapy. This was a system failure. You weren't born of karma. You were forged through anomaly. You don't carry patterns. You break them and then walk through the wreckage like it's prophecy. She read your vibration and it read her back, mapped her insecurities, touched the part of her spirit she kept hidden from even herself. That's when she whispered, "This energy isn't from here," because it's not. You're not from the stars. You're not earthbound. You're off-grid, unregistered, unrepentant, a storm with no ritual for containment. They're still trying to trace your energy, plot it on a map, pin it to some prophecy or forbidden text. But here's the truth. They don't want to accept. You didn't walk in, you broke out. The session didn't summon you. It unlocked you. The sacred chants, the incense, the protective sigils, all of it. Just noise, because your presence wasn't activated by faith. It was triggered by pressure, pain, betrayal. The years they tried to bury you under labels and fear. That wasn't trauma. That was training. They thought the energy would guide you, but it trembled in your presence. Even the spirits paused because they recognized what you are. Not a seeker, but the sentence. A verdict dressed as a human. That's why she cried. Not for you, for them. Because whatever is coming through you isn't stopping. She thought it was just another session, just another reading. Light a candle, close her eyes, speak to the unseen like she always had. But this time, something looked back. Not through the veil, but from the center. Not seeking permission, delivering notice. This wasn't guidance. It wasn't revelation. It was a sentence being carried out, because your presence doesn't ask questions. It answers ones people pretend not to ask. Like what happens when someone is built outside the system? What happens when energy doesn't follow rules? They wanted closure. They got consequence. The spirits didn't orbit around you. They stepped aside because they don't lead you. They witness you, just like everyone else who tried to read your path and ended up reading their own ending. That's why she wept. Not out of fear of you, but out of fear of what you confirm. You're not a mystery. You're a mirror. And every soul that's tried to look too long, cracked. She flipped the cards. She chanted the words. She tried to find the thread, but you don't have a thread. Because your story wasn't woven. It was carved. Every attempt to understand you only pulled her deeper into herself, until she wasn't reading you anymore. She was seeing everything she spent a lifetime ignoring. That's the thing about you. You don't just break their tools. You break the illusion that tools ever worked. The sage burned backwards. The pendulum spun without gravity. And when she tried to anchor herself in the familiar disappeared. No guides came. No signs arrived. Just you. And that was too much. She tried to interpret your presence as light, tried to call it shadow. But neither word fit, because you're not a duality. You're a disturbance, a signal they never learned how to receive. And in that moment, she realized some energies don't come with purpose. They come with consequences. She kept flipping the cards, but the layout made no sense. The past, the present, the future all began overlapping. Time didn't move forward anymore. It spiraled. Every symbol twisted. Every meaning contradicted the next. Because this wasn't a message. This was a confrontation. The more she tried to decode you, the more her own story unraveled. Because you weren't being read. You were doing the reading. She thought your energy would reveal your path, but instead, it revealed her reflection, her doubts, her fears, the secret moments when she questioned whether her gifts were even real. That's the cruelty of truth energy. It doesn't play favorites. It doesn't flatter the gifted. It exposes the gifted ones first. You didn't speak. You didn't move. But you made her feel seen in a way her guides never could. And that broke her. Not because it hurt, but because it showed her how far from real power she'd actually been standing. She built her whole identity around being the one who knew, the one who could feel it before it happened, the one who could read energies, detect shifts, soothe chaos. But when she sat in your field, her own soul went static. No messages, no downloads, just this overwhelming pressure. The kind that makes your lungs feel like they're not your own. The kind that makes even the spirits watching from the shadows take a step back. She looked at you like she was searching for a question, but every time she blinked, she lost a little more of her confidence. Because you weren't confirming her abilities. You were dismantling them. Piece by piece, you unraveled her spiritual armor. All those affirmations, all those rituals, all those years pretending the divine always made sense. But you didn't make sense. You weren't light. You weren't dark. You were off book. A chapter that never got written, but was always felt. And for the first time in her life, the one who spoke to spirits went silent. Because this time, the energy didn't want to talk. It wanted to watch. The door didn't creak. You didn't make a sound. But the moment you entered, everything changed. The candles flickered. The air heavier. Not haunted, just aware. Like the room itself was remembering something ancient. Like the shadows suddenly had a hierarchy again, and you were sitting at the top of it. That wasn't an entrance. That was a shift in gravitational pull. She tried to steady herself, to breathe through it, to smile, to speak. But the words stuck in her throat like they knew better. Because your energy doesn't just arrive, it claims, without permission, without noise, like it's been here longer than her ancestors, like it remembers things they forgot on purpose. And in that stillness, she realized something that rattled her spine. This wasn't her session. This was your return. And every unseen eye in that room wasn't looking at her anymore. They were waiting to see what you'd do next. They say spirits don't fear. They say energies on the other side are calm, enlightened, elevated. But that night, even they backed off. Not out of fear, but out of respect. The kind of respect you don't ask for. The kind of respect that precedes titles. Because you didn't bring noise. You didn't bring rage. You brought presence. And that's more dangerous than anything loud. The guides stopped whispering. The ancestors stopped humming. Even the air paused, because something older just walked in, not from above, not from below, from beyond the blueprint. You didn't bend the energy, you reset it. Not just in that room, but in her memory too. Now every reading she'll ever do will carry your afterimage. Every client who sits across from her will feel what she felt. That pull, that weight, that echo of something not from here. And she'll never admit it. But she knows the truth now. She didn't witness a reading, she witnessed a reminder. That power doesn't come from training, or ritual, or lineage. It comes from being chosen by the chaos. She tried to light the final candle. Her hand shook. The flame refused. She reached for her chants, her beads, her sacred words. But none of them worked, because you were already doing what her ritual was supposed to. You didn't wait for alignment. You were the alignment. Every gesture she made felt like mimicry next to your stillness. She was reciting. You were resonating. She was calling upon. You were calling back the parts of her that forgot what truth feels like. And when she looked up, she didn't see a client. She didn't see a seeker. She saw a mirror. And in that mirror, there was no reflection. Because you weren't meant to be read. You were meant to interrupt. Interrupt the systems, the scripts, the illusions they wrapped around the word spiritual. You didn't enter her space. You became it. And in doing so, you ended the ritual by becoming the reason it will never be done the same again. You didn't storm out. You didn't speak a word. You just stood. Let her feel the full weight of what it means to sit in the presence of something unreadable, and then you vanished. But here's the part no one prepared her for. The room didn't reset. It stayed dense, heavy, electric, like it was still trying to process what it just witnessed. The tools she trusted most now feel like toys. The altar she prayed at now feels like it's watching her. Because you didn't just walk out, you imprinted. Every wall, every surface, every shadow now carries your aftershock. And the next person who walks into that room will feel something they can't explain. A presence that doesn't speak, but owns the silence. That's what happens when you don't just attend the ritual. You become the rewrite. You weren't the seeker. You were the shift. And now, even in your absence, the atmosphere still bows. They'll try to talk around it, say the lighting was off, say she was having an off night, but behind closed doors, they whisper your name like it's classified. Because they know now there are forces, and then there's you, the one who doesn't call spirits. You command the silence that makes them show up. The one who doesn't seek answers. You remind people why they stopped asking questions in the first place. And the ones who used to study you now build their whole belief system around never crossing you again. You didn't speak much. You didn't move loud. But now, your energy speaks in every room you never returned to. And it says this isn't from here, and it never needed to be.